The 2020 season will begin just like 2019 did for the Premier Lacrosse League in New England at Gillette Stadium. The PLL logo once again on display this afternoon as Paul Rabil made the announcement. And with that, we welcome you. This is Lacrosse Now, presented by 500 to 1. I'm Travis Eldridge. We continue our college previews tonight, talking with Denver head coach Bill Tierney. But we start in the PLL, where the league will kick off the 2020 season at the home of the Patriots. Rabil announcing that opening weekend at that press conference today at Gillette Stadium. Second straight year, the PLL opens the season in New England, this time playing May 29th and 30th. That's a Friday and then Saturday this year. Last season, the season kicked off with back-to-back OT games on Saturday afternoon before Paul's Atlas team played on Sunday. Today, Rabil relived walking onto the field on that opening weekend.
Walking into opening weekend after 2 overtime games on Saturday, Atlas Lacrosse Club played on Sunday. There's nothing like running out onto a field and having Bill Belichick, Teddy Bruschi, Matt Hasselback, Angelo Ruggiero, Boston greats on the sideline supporting you. Owners like Dan Kraft watching the game on pins and needles, and 13,500 fans who came through over the course of the weekend to watch our games. For us, we left this marketplace knowing that not only was it some place that stood forever in history with us, but was one that we were going to come back in years to come.
A couple of other notes from today's press conference. They'll play Friday night and Saturday night at Gillette that opening weekend. That's different from the 3-day games that were played in New England last year. A little tweak there. There will be no rule changes for year 2 of the league. The field size, shot clock, here to stay. Everything remains the same when it comes to on-field stuff. Rabil also said with the addition of the 7th team, there will be a few double-header weekends. That means there will be sites with 4 games in a weekend instead of 3. That would mean 2 teams would have to play 2 games in that weekend. Earlier today, I had a chance to go one-on-one with Rabil at Gillette. So, Paul, once again, starting the 2020 season, year 2 here at Gillette Stadium, we were talking about the continuity. What does it mean to have some continuity in the start of year 2 as you kind of relaunch this thing again?
Right. I think that's really important. Part of the benefit of being a tour-based model is that we can iterate, and some of the iteration in subsequent weeks will be announcing new locations and new venues. But over top of that, building consistency around a fan base that has been an amalgamation over the last year and a half since we announced of people not only who are core fans and participants of the sport, but also now net new fans of the sport. So providing that consistency is now a part of a theme of how we decide to operate and make decisions, and one of which was to make the announcement today about our home opener here at Gillette. It's going to be a Friday night, so May 29th, and then May 30th we have a 4:30 game and then a game that follows. So 2 night games versus last year being here on 2 afternoons, on a Saturday and afternoon on a Sunday. So we're really excited about the way that we're iterating, but also building consistency around destination. And our opening weekend in New England, we think, not only matches with an appropriate kind of larger-than-life style venue that continues to be the aspiration for the PLL, but the Kraft family, who are advocates for lacrosse, Dan having played it and them having been hosts to Final Four events, to the operational partnership that we have with the sales team here, to the partnership team that we're spending most of the day with talking about strategy around, and then the marketplace. So you have Mass Bay Youth Lacrosse, you have Rhode Island Youth Lacrosse, you have a number of the top club operators here. We have a number of players who played at Providence, UMass, and Harvard, as I made call out to up there. So all of those reasons made it pretty compelling to come back.
You had mentioned through your success at places like Albany and Hopkins about also wanting to explore some of the smaller venues because of the ability to sell them out, have a great crowd on hand. How do you balance that in the tour dates you're going to look at this year?
Yeah, well, you have to balance it. You nailed it. So we'll be at some venues of that size when you talk about 8,500 to 11,000, 12,000 capacity. And those are positioned differently. We sell them differently. They're in different kind of emerging markets. And then also also a part of the stadiums available. So when you look at the greater New England market, you look at destination being in Foxborough and with the Gillette backing and as well as the Crafts. But we'll have a healthy balance. This is an NFL venue. It's large. We'll also be playing at smaller venues, and I think the middle-sized venues in between a lot of our MLS venues that we played roughly 80% of our games at, that number will probably shift more towards 50%. But I think a lot of the excitement from our team internally has come from the inbound side of things. So we've had a number of tourism boards reach out, as well as venues. This time last year, put it this way, we had a presentation, we had funding, and a network. So the network part in particular was really exciting, but now we have work product that we can point to. We have success from other venues, and we're playing in a season during the year that is pretty untouched when it comes to just us, Major League Baseball and MLS.
Lacrosse-wise, you played, and I don't think I've heard a lot about. What did you learn lacrosse-wise from the new rules and the new experience of playing in a league that you created?
Yeah, well, I have to make more time for myself to train and shoot. I had probably one of my worst seasons of my career, honestly, off the back of building this thing with our staff last year. So I'm creating more time for myself lacrosse-wise. Secondarily, yeah, I think it was a race for a lot of our coaches and our players to figure out the change in the field dimensions and the pace of play and how that impacted the run of game. So I'll put it this way, with a 60-minute game and a bigger field, it's more of a midfielder sport. With a smaller field, I think the shooting, aggression, and frankly the prowess of our defenders and the mitigated risk now of leaving the back end and going to the front end, because the shortened field is actually out of the middle of the field, created more transition. And then with more transition, you're seeing more attack, I think, benefit. So the last thing is the goalie play. Goalie play was terrific. So as you look at, I think, offenses developed in some of the conversations that we're at least having with Atlas and this offseason is a shift of where offenses are being ignited, where the lion's share of goals are being scored, understanding the transition game a little bit more, and I think the style of play or the game across the board has been really well received. But you'll start seeing style of play adjust a little bit more, I think.
For the players, other than the addition of a new team, any changes in year two?
Well, I think we're going to see, just as exciting of a product, we're going to see some fantastic players on the field. We're going to see now more chemistry than even last year. I mean, part of the way we built the teams in year one was around trying to create chemistry as quickly as possible from training camp to week one. And that's why you see, frankly, I think the Redwoods and the Whips in the championship game is you have a team made of Maryland guys and Notre Dame guys who were able to kickstart that chemistry, I think, a bit quicker than others. And certainly credit to them, because it's not just as simple as that. But I think that was pretty prevalent. I think what we'll see now is teams take more shape based off of trades, 3 drafts forthcoming, and then I think we'll just see continued influence of Ryder Garnsies and Jules Henenbergs and young guys who make a pretty massive impact on the game.
Finally, you add a 7th team, and I know you're always looking ahead. What's the goal if you look ahead to a couple years in terms of how many teams and where you want the league to be?
That's a great question. So I actually think about sports professionally from a business and media capacity as one that's also changing at a macro level. So traditionally in pro sports, you had a business model that was planned to scale number of franchises as quick as possible in a healthy manner, because if you have more teams, more tickets sold, more media inventory, potentially more sponsorships. But I think as we've seen the consumer market shift more, and this is the case with the NBA and the NFL in particular, is that ratings skyrocket for your preeminent matchups, and as a result, because media is so, it's very short and waning now, but in those moments can be so valuable that sponsors are flocking more towards those preeminent matchups as our ticket sales, and I think pro sports have become less and less about drafting as many ticket propositions as possible and corporate sponsorships as possible, and more about your pound for pound punch per minute you're on television. And so I say all of that because I think that from our vantage point, whether we're a 7-team league for the next 2 years, an 8-team league in the next 3 years, or up to a 12-team league, I don't view expansion as a path to growth. I view our time on screen, the moments where we're playing, as those key moments to maximize all of our revenue streams. So as long as we're increasing viewership numbers, as long as we're increasing tickets and sponsorship opportunities, then it can be, the same number of teams going against each other each week. The marketplace is just shifting.
Paul, appreciate the time. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, speaking of PLL news, Rabil's team has 2 new assistant coaches for 2020. New head coach Ben Rubior bringing in a pair of former Syracuse stars, Rick Beardsley and Stephen Brooks. Brooks actually played in a game for the Atlas last season, while Beardsley continues to work as the head coach at Christian Brothers Academy in Syracuse. Good to see Uncle Ricky Beast on the sideline. Brian Zuzzi on Twitter, great idea for Uncle Ricky Beast, tweeting, "I am formally requesting a 24/7 mic'd up of Rick Beardsley for this season. I promise it will be picked up as a series. My idea, I expect credit."